Welcome, 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 everyone. Assalamu alaikum and peace be unto you. I have a wonderful show that we're about to bring to you. First of all, my name is Master Abdul Azziz Muhammad, formerly known and still known as Grandmaster Anthony Muhammad. And I welcome you to this tremendous show called Walking with the Master. This particular show is called Walking with the Master is because of my and our opportunity to walk with the Master, Dr. Moses Powell, Musa Muhammad, for some of you that know him in that way. So I have the awesome privilege and opportunity to be a brother and a friend to my guest that's on, who is not going to be a guest for much longer than this one. He'll be one that'll come on again and again, and you'll get a chance to see him. This is Professor Walter Evans. Ush, my brother, how you doing?
Us. How are you, sir?
Man, I'm great. I'm glad to have you on. Listen, everybody, you should now, go ahead and call your friends, subscribe, do all of the things necessary, because we got a tremendous show that you haven't had an opportunity to see him on here so far, but you're getting your opportunity now. So let's go right into it, my brother. How are you doing?
I'm fine, beloved. I'm just fine, one day at a time.
Yes.
It's a pleasure to see you and also be here.
Man, it's a pleasure to see you too. And we had an opportunity to be together at Cijo Getling's event with Soke and whatnot. We had a good time there, but this is an opportunity for them, those that are here, to get a chance to walk with you a little bit, because you're the master we're walking with today.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, let's start this off and let everybody know the reason for this starting. I want to tell you, the truth is that I am not the one to actually do these podcasts, but in my early interviews, I found that it was so intriguing, so beautiful, that people that I have walked with, I've been with, I really didn't know all that there was to know, and I still don't. That's why I can keep on interviewing them. And this is another brother who I have had the pleasure of being around for a number of years, and I'm going to talk about some things a little later on, but I've had the pleasure of being around him for a number of years, a student of Soke Little John Davis, and we're going to go into it, we're going to go into it. We're going to talk about some things. So my brother, let me just ask you, Professor, in terms of, I'm sorry, I still have to say, why are we doing this? We're doing this because it's really a show on behalf of Dr. Moses Powell. This is a show to always recognize him, to know that he is an individual that is worth remembering. There's another wise man said, and this wise man is also Tiari Cassell. He said there's 2 times that you can leave or die. And the first time is when you expound your last breath. When you let your last breath out, you die. And of course, we're not talking about death in the formal sense. Well, I should say, yes, we are, but I don't want you to think that a warrior actually dies at that time. And that's what this next part is. The second time you die or can die is when no one speaks your name again. So this is not a thing. We're taught in Islam that, we should not speak of those who die in Allah's way as dead. Never think of them as dead. Nay, they're not dead. It's just that you perceive not. So we have to understand that we keep our warriors alive, and Doc is going to be forever alive as long as somebody is teaching what he taught, somebody is thinking about him, somebody is saying something about him. He lives. Absolutely. So that's That's Doc. That's who we talking about.
Sir.
And this is a man on here that also knows Doc, like he knows all of the masters that of the VSK, what VSK means and represents. So my brother, with that being said, I want to get into you. I want to get into some things about you and where did you even come up with martial arts? We want to go to the root, and we always talk about that, going to the root. Let's go to your root, man, and where you came from. Because now, listen, now you know other people. Now I know I can talk to you about your root because you have roots, and I've seen and know your roots. But there are some that are really are not. They don't have great roots. They talk a great game. But they don't have strong and deep roots. You do. So kind of tell me a little bit about yourself so we can know what's going on and how did Professor Walter Evans actually come into the martial arts?
Well, sir, it was when I was approximately 8 years old, living in a single, parent household with my mother. And visited quite frequently by my grandmother. In Bronx, New York, I was born in the old Lincoln Hospital, not the new one, the older Lincoln Hospital, the first one. But, they would come home and tell me stories about their overnight ventures because they were, let's say, doing barmaids in Harlem.
Mm-hmm.
So I would get these stories about them being approached negatively, disrespectfully, and my uncle would be there quite often to come to the rescue. So I would hear these stories, how my uncle Jesse, which was a friend of Sugar Ray Robinson, would tell me about how he would come to their defense. I mean, in a physical way, a very strong physical way. And so I'd hear them stories, how he chipped people up in the, out in the bar, wherever they were, and I wanted to be like him. I wanted to be the man that that people look up to come rescue them. But it was my uncle. So now I have somebody I can identify with, like I said, single parent household with no father there to, to look up to. So my uncle Jesse was basically that father image for quite some time. And so they would tell me, I said, well, how did he learn how to fight so well? And he was a veteran of the Korean War.
Okay. And,
a lot of soldiers would take up the martial arts while they were over in Korea or Japan. And that's what he did. He took up those arts and he also boxed. And so I would hear those stories. Believe it or not, he never taught me any more than a jab or a cross or something like that. But knowing that he took martial arts was mystical. Well, what is that? What is a martial art? What is a judo? So it just kind of stuck with me, and every opportunity I got, I would research, and a lot of times I would see a martial arts presence on a college campus because we moved a lot, and I would peek in the window and just get a glimpse of the white uniforms, and it was just a real mystical kind of thing that I wanted to be involved with. I was small. I wasn't a big kid with a lot of muscles. I had a lot of heart, but I was also quiet. So, I thought that martial arts would be there for me. That was my thing. But what really took it from the next level, it's funny, is our man Flint, James Coburn.
Yeah.
That guy, he was so cool, man. He was so cool. And, I wanted to be like him, so I went from the hustlers on the corner, wanting to be like, to this cool cat called our man Flint. And that movie came out, and the walls were changed around in his apartment, and he really introduced martial arts to a lot of folks in his movie. And so it was just so cool. So that really fed my interest for the martial arts.
And that's excellent. You just reminded me. I loved In Like Flint.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. It was great. So that fed you. That fed you. Where did the martial arts actually come in?
The martial arts actually came in on looking at the magazines. I believe it was Black Belt Karate Magazine, Illustrated. I'd get them and I'd go. I was living with my grandfather up in New Haven, Connecticut at that time. And so I'd walk to the corner store and buy a magazine and come back like many of us did back in when we didn't have an instructor. And I would look at the pictures and I would practice the stances, the punches. And there were several books that I also purchased when we would come into Manhattan, and I practiced that way. But living in Yale University area, there was an instructor who came from Korea, and I saw karate on the, marquee. And so I quietly walked up the stairs and peeked my head in the door, and this Oriental guy says, "Come in." Not really speaking much of English, just broken English. He, like I said, just coming from Korea. And so I sat and I watched for weeks at a time. And finally, one day he says, "You want to learn? Come." He invited me on the floor. And so I started that way. I think I surprised him by how well that I taught myself by looking at the pictures. So he kept me as a student, and from that day on, I worked and became a green belt under him in Taekwondo.
What style or what system was he in again?
It was a Taekwondo.
It was Taekwondo.
Korean style, Taekwondo, yeah.
Right.
So the kicks came really good, came easy. We kicked a lot, and I did my forms. So we learned the forms. A green belt that took me to the green belt level, and I would spar, with a few people, and I got real good at it, just not as good as I did when I made my transition to Soki, but that's a whole nother story. We'll get there. But as I would come and train with a Tai Lee on Broadway, I looked over to the next room. It was a dojo with split in half, and the other room was a dojo of judo. And there I would see another brother. I said, wow, another brother like me with a big afro, and he was doing the judo thing, not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be like, oh man, Flint, I wanted to kick and punch. So, but that brother happened to be George Logan. Yes, it happened to be George Logan on the other side, and we didn't meet at first. We nodded at each other, we passed each other, but we didn't meet actually until a few years later. So we met, and actually we really started to communicate when there was a news article in the newspaper or TV that a martial arts exhibition was coming to town. And that was at Hill House High School in New Haven. So I attended, and that's where I met George, and also I believe Warrington Hudlin might have been in the crowd as well.
Right.
So it was amazing. I don't have to tell you, back in the day, it was 69, 71, that year frame. And we had an opportunity to see the Wilder twins, James Coburn, George Cofield, and his students did an awesome exhibition, as well as Little John Davis and Dr. Moses Powell as well. My first time seeing someone, move so smooth. Like I said, I came from Taekwondo, looking at the rigid, the hard and strong, but to see the movement of Doc so smooth and forceful. I changed my idea of wanting to be a karate man, you know. I wanted to be, I was following the cool guys, and Doc was cool, he was smooth and cool. So my interest was there. So I collaborated with George and, from time to time. So I went on to another teacher called Garnett James. I would go back and forth with Tai Lee and Garnett James, also doing a Korean style. So he was visited. See, back in the day, you would encounter people who wanted to come in your dojo and challenge you.
Yes, sir.
So we had that challenge by an instructor called George Brumsey.
Oh, yes, sir.
George Logan was doing judo, but he also transitioned to George Brumsey, was a student of Dr. Moses Powell as well, who had moved up to Connecticut. So George and Warrenton, they were with the George Brumsey clan. It was like the Snidely Whiplash of martial arts, the black uniform. And I'm with the white uniform. I'm looking at being the good guy. I got the white on, you understand? And them guys were dusty in black uniforms and scary and scary. They would flip and throw people and roll out smooth, but that's what I wanted to do ultimately. So they came into the dojo, Brumsey and George and them. So I ended up sparring and with a brown belt, and I did very, very well, just doing my karate against them. Sparring is sparring. So that was a really challenging and scary moment, but that's when I knew I really had heart. So back to Doc. Doc moved to New Haven after the demo. He actually bought or rented a home up on the hill. Every town has a hill where the rich folks live. And we heard that Doc had purchased a home up there. And so we went by and we were greeted by Soke, Little John, and Doc, and the students that would come down to up to Connecticut with Doc. And so we did some training. I had a road partner, his name was Michael Bryce, and we ran together. So we did a few classes up on that house on the hill. And Doc moved back and Little John stayed. And so, but Little John visited my instructor. I'm talking about now, the Garnett James. And I went to the school and he had black eyes. I said, "What happened to you? What happened?" He said, "Oh, Little John, what about Little John? He came here." Okay, and obviously he did some damage. Wow, you're my instructor. So, and then as well, George as well would tell me about, the classes that they would do in Bridgeport with Soke, him and Martin. And so I wanted to be a part of that, but I didn't quite leave Tai Lee, the Korean, who is the head of that system, until I was in class. I don't want to skip over the part. So I did eventually take class with Little John. We were trained at Southern Connecticut State College. And so from there, I guess Little John.
At this time, Soke Little John is living in Connecticut.
He's living in Connecticut now. Yes. And so he was living in New Haven. And I didn't train exactly just yet with him. I heard a lot about him, and then I was in a Tai Lee's class, and I was waiting for the next class to go in, which was mine, and Soki walked in the door downtown, and he says, "Ush, after that initial meeting with him, I guess he claimed me as his, you know. So he was waiting there for me to finish class. And I did the class, I came out, but in the interim, the Korean, the top black belt came out to greet him and says, "How can I help you?" You know how sometimes they can be a little harsh. "How can I help you? Who are you here for?" And my understanding that Soki didn't take kindly to the way he was approached. Yeah. And and so he said, "Who is that guy? I don't like him." I said, "Oh, well, he's the top black belt, Soki, or Little John. We called him Master Little John then." And he says, "Okay, all right, I'll see him." Okay, so I went with him from that day on. I trained with him. You know, I was with Little John. I was with Soke, and so we would train. And with George, with Warrington, and a few others, you know, Kevin, and there's a few others that were there. And I remember we having a sparring session at the college outside. We trained a lot outside in the grass. And so it was, he says, Little John says, Master Little John says, "Come, we spar." I said, "Okay, y'all go spar. I'm watching." I'm watching. I saw Garnett's eyes get all blacked up. I said, "I'm just gonna watch." But you know, he's very convincing. And so he sparred with every one of us, back to back to back. He says, "I'm going to the garden. You want me to be in shape, right?" "Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir." And so I was very humble back then, you know, really humble. You want to get home, so you're humble. I mean, in one piece. So, you know, I sparred and he kicked me down the hill. There was a hill over there. So I got kicked far enough to go and down the hill. So I crawled back up. I'm here, I'm still alive. So it went like that on and on. So I said, this is what real sparring is about. You know, not pulling punches. They were pulled, but you know how Silky, his punches are pulled.
Right, he'll let you know that it was here.
It was here, yeah. You know, so these are the times when there was no gear, bare knuckle, of course. So we're talking 71 at this time. I got another little story. We also trained at the teen center, they called it, a recreation center. And Warrington Hudlin was a brown belt. Grandmaster George Logan was also a brown belt, or he had maybe a brown or black, I'm not sure, in his judo. But we sparred at that center, and it was first time sparring with Warrington. He was really good in those days. He actually sparred with Terry Cassell back then in New York. So he sweat, I'm here, and he sweat me, and all I could see is ceiling, first of all. And I fell best way I could. I didn't know quite how to do the side falls and things, but that wouldn't have helped much because the brother followed me to the ground with a reverse punch to my head, and all I could see was knuckles coming down, and closed my eyes, and it was a loud ki. I mean, whoa. And it was meant to scare me, which it did. So I'll never forget that. I was really frightened over that. So I started to step up my fighting game a little bit. Yeah, so we would train, all of us now, doing a lot of sparring. We all have gotten better now at sparring. And also training with Little John before he went to the garden to fight. So we were actually Soki's first black belts back in the 70s. You know, I remember his birthday. We celebrated his birthday there. He just turned 21. So that's going back a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. He just turned what? He just had a birthday as we're speaking.
Yes, yes. And mine's a few days after, doesn't mean, you know, much, but mine's on the 23rd. But his was way more important. So we celebrated in our way. We got beat up outside in the grass. And then we would go have a juice or something like that. So shoot a question to me. I mean, I can go on and on about our, days. He would ride with us in the car. It was like, we were like boys,
Man, man. No, I mean, I'm loving the stories. I mean, I'm just, you got me over here in the seat, just enjoying your history. And that's what I had asked earlier. Just, let's go down that. Now, let me ask you, I mean, you were a strong competitor. So you got with Soke and you picked up your competitor game. Now, I remember you were also moving about, doing a lot of fighting all around.
Yes, sir. That was later. Yes.
So let's go back. Before getting there, let's continue a little bit. Who are some of the people that you met along the way in your progress? How did you up your game? What did you do in terms of your fighting? To become a very, very good, a great fighter.
Yes, sir. Well, we wrapped it up. Soke was ready to move back to New York, and I was going back and forth, but I think that decision in 1976, 1976, I believe it was like October or November, I decided to go and move back to Manhattan myself. So we actually rode back together, leaving New Haven, Connecticut, packed our belongings in a car, and we drove off. So I said goodbye to New Haven. So did he. So I trained with him and the classes that he did from then on. So if you can imagine, he would coach me on the sparring and the techniques and the kata. But in those days, Soke would also spar with us a little bit as well. So I think that's where I got a whole lot of the aggressiveness from my fighting, is being able to spar. You have a good sparring partner that's going to make you good. And so he coached me that way. And then I said, look, we're in New York. I don't have money to pay you right now. He says, you'll pay me when you get a chance, as long as you stay a productive student. And so I guess that meant teaching the newcomers in the class. That meant performing well at the tournaments, representing. And so in that way, I was a productive student, I believe.
Awesome. Let me ask you, when did you get with Doc? When was Dr. Moses Powell introduced into your life?
Well, up in New Haven. So we did a couple of classes up in the hill in the backyard. When Little John's German Shepherd wasn't back there. He had acquired a German Shepherd from somewhere. He acquired a German Shepherd from somewhere, but yeah, so it was a few classes there in New Haven. And like I said, I moved back to New York. So before we moved back to New York, actually, that road partner I had, Michael Bryce, we would drive to Brooklyn, and we wanted to train with Doc. So we went to Brooklyn Atlantic Avenue, 552, and
554.
Oh, 554. Yeah, 554. And so, but Doc wasn't there right away, so we stayed overnight in the dojo. And who was there? Lumumba. So we had class with Lumumba. And Doc came in the next day or whatever. And we had came up another time, and we were all waiting outside the dojo for Doc to come. And I was on the corner there where the donut shop is now. And by myself, I just wandered up, and I saw this man running down the street and like chasing a car in the street. And I said, well, this is New York. You see a little bit of everything here. I geared in on it. I locked in on it, and it was Doc chasing a car. He had some white shorts on and some you know, shirt. He was really built and obviously had some endurance with him. He's chasing that car. And when he made it to the corner for Flatbush and Atlantic, he turned that corner and be like, what's up? What's wrong? What's up? You know? And he said, those people, man, they rolled by me, splashed water, almost got me. Oh, so you were going to chip them up for that? I said, whoa. So I stayed back. I didn't know him well enough to go up and hug him and all of these things like the other cats did. I was on the side, you know. So that's another story, man. That was something I'll never forget, to see him chasing the car.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so in terms of your getting to up in your training now, you've gotten more trained. You've been working with Soke for a minute now.
Yes.
You've been going in and out of Atlantic Avenue. So
and across the street to Professor V, we over to the bookstore. I believe there's only 2 classes with Professor V then.
Yes.
That was
yes.
my introduction to him in the 70s, 71, my first introduction to him. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So kind of start sharing with me some of your sparring escapades.
Yes, and you can call it that. Because I had to represent. You know, I couldn't be with Soke and not do well. You know, it's something that you just wanted to do, and you were compelled to do. You want to go back with any excuses. So at least that's the way I felt. And so we was in Brooklyn one day at a tournament, and I was brown belt. I worked my way up to brown belt, and so I believe it was Lumumba and Soke came to me and says, "Us, Walt." He said, "Yeah, you fight black belt, us?" I said, "No, sir, I fight brown belt." "No, you fight black belt, us?" I said, "What? You mean you want me to fight black belt, sir?" "Okay, I'll do that." And Lumumba took his black belt off and gave it to me. And I walked with it that day. I actually competed that day in black belt division. That was my first black belt fight. You know, I guess I fought a few times in brown belt around the city, but that's how I got my black belt, because I wanted to stay brown. I wanted to stay brown for as long as I could. I wanted to stay green for as long as I could. You know, I wasn't really good with the techniques. I had memory issues and that sort of thing. So, but I could fight. And you know, that would, to me, it made up for the lack of the technician part of it. So I was very pleased. It was scary to be in Brooklyn now with a black belt. You're liable to run into anybody, which I did. I ran into a lot of folks in my weight division. William Oliver, just quite a few people back in those days.
Yes.
Yeah.
Man. So you ran into, see, I'm still looking. Give me some good stuff now. I mean,
okay. I came along. I came along. We trained in several places in Manhattan, in basements mostly, you know, and I got kind of good doing the tournaments and things. I don't know how far I can skip up to get to the good part. We actually, you and I actually drove to Virginia one year and competed. Yeah, I believe you placed in your forms and also fighting. And I've placed something in, I can't remember, but I know I placed something in Kumite. Yeah, so we met at a few places, you know. Yeah. We rode a couple of places competing and what have you. I'm getting off track a little bit, so okay, let's bring it up to, we had a pretty good team there. We had a guy called Bill Whitaker, and we had Chinese brother called Jacob, and Bill McLeod also would train with us in Manhattan, and a few other black belts, and always visitors. Always visitors would come and train with Soke.
Yes.
Yeah. So I had the opportunity to meet a lot of people. Kenneth Brown would come through. Dr. Randy would come through. Shaka Zulu also would come through and take class, and quite a few others. Actually, a lot of the brothers in the nation would come through and get their training in as well.
You got a chance to see a lot. That was back in a great day. Now, let me ask you, there are a lot of people today mentioning that they trained back in that time. But I don't always remember them actually being on the floor. Doc was something, though. He was the type of person that taught all over the place. I mean, so many different people have, stated and actually have trained on some level. But back in those days, that Atlantic Avenue, that tells you that was a place that if you trained there, you were a student under Doc in a big way.
Well, actually, Doc, when I was able to come to New York and take class a couple of times, I'll tell you, like twice actually on Atlantic Avenue. But Doc was on his way out. So at that time in the 71, 72, he had left the dojo on Atlantic Avenue.
He left the dojo in the late 78, 79 is when he really left. But I mean, there may have been times, like you mentioned, Connecticut and whatnot. There were times when he was away or whatever the case. But Atlantic Avenue was there up until the late 70s.
Late
70s when it closed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But nonetheless, I mean, that the piece out in Connecticut is really a great conversation too, because you had the different, you mentioned them earlier, the Brumsies and the different, Grandmaster Logan. I mean, how were they at that time?
They were more advanced than me, for sure. Technique wise, we did our forms, forms as well. Although I was, I had that rigidness, I had that Taekwondo. So actually I was pretty good in forms. Just remembering them was another thing. It's another issue, but if Soke guided me along, I would do really good, in the forms. But Warrington and George, they were excellent technicians, and also forms people. Yes.
And there was a period of I don't want to say a period, but I just know that Warrington also studied capoeira.
Yes.
To bring some of that into the class.
I remember that. Yes. This is when we moved. This is when we were in New York now.
Yes. I remember up in Teachers College when he was teaching in Teachers College.
122nd Street at Thompson's Gym.
Well, no, he was actually in the college, in a portion of Teachers College, where he taught.
Yes.
Over there, and so that was a time, when Soke was over there, and so did you? Well, of course you did. I mean, some of the other locations that Soke taught.
All of them in Manhattan. Yeah, in Manhattan, and I would visit. He said, "Come on, let's go to Brooklyn." He had a class in Linden Boulevard, actually,
yes,
inside his building. So I went there a few times. In different locations, I'd go over and with him, different locations he had going on. But I was primarily Manhattan, you know,
yes, yes.
the Harlem Dojo, the Upper West Side of Harlem. I lived on Western Avenue there, 106. He taught 107th down in the basement there.
Yeah, yeah. He was also over there on 123rd at the school that he was.
Oh, that was yes, for sure. That was the blood, sweat, and tears day. You know that. No mat on the floor, hard concrete with the gray battleship gray floor. How can you forget that?
I tell you, it's okay. That was the first time, because I wasn't really into swimming, but he makes you
Yes.
at the pool. That was the first time I realized that you could sweat in the water.
Yeah. That's the
Yeah. Something with that.
He
Yeah.
would bring a whole lot out of you, a whole lot out of you in that pool as well. Yeah,
Right.
he became a really excellent swimmer. He would hit that water and disappear. He would go back, and you brought up some times there. I forget about how well he swam.
Yes.
He would catch everybody. We'd come in the door and say, "Come on, go change up. Let's swim." So that was our workout, our afternoon workout.
Yes. That's right. And Doc was a swimmer too.
I didn't know that.
Oh my God, yes. He used to go to BRC, Brownsville Recreation Center, and he would swim there. So Doc was a fish as well, just like Selke.
I didn't know that. He expressed a lot of times how he loved the water. And I asked him a question. I said, "Well, look, you were in Aruba. You like Aruba. You was in Aruba. Well, how does that water change colors like that? How does it?" So he told me, I don't know whether it was a reflection of the sun or whatever it was, but I can't remember exactly. But he was very knowledgeable.
Yes.
About the water. He loved water a whole lot. Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. How about some of your, did you have any big fights? Because you used to go to these competitions and whatnot.
Yeah.
So did you have any big fights, or let's just say the tournament scene in it by itself? That's a whole nother conversation. Just how it was back in the day, because it could turn into a martial arts game.
Exactly, where the swords would come out. Back in those days, there was New Jersey, I'd say Newark, and then there was New York.
Yeah.
And there was a bit of a rival going on. That was a little above my head, but I was Soke's student, so whatever happened just happened. I'm down with Soke. The KA system was they were awesome fighters.
Yes.
And they're not the bad guys, they were the rough guys.
Yes.
They were the rough guys. Be on your guard to expect anything. They wanted to see some real hardcore fighting. And so I think that made me a hardcore fighter, being in that atmosphere and being around those folks. Yeah, there was no gloves. So I was really coming up in the transitioning from no glove sparring tournaments to the June Ree equipment, which was very cumbersome.
Oh,
it was hard to adjust.
Assimilate, to assimilate into that. It just felt like you were in, it was just, I didn't like it at all,
No, it was a restriction for us jiu-jitsu people, period.
Yeah.
A whole lot of restrictions.
Right. And even the old karateka that was battling back in those days, once the gloves and footgear and the headgear. It's a big change. It was a big change. But yeah, I do remember that that change. And when you put it on, it just seemed, well, it was a whole nother era. That's just all it was. It was a of gear changed the whole previous era, and then it became about safety.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
though,
About
e-
safety.
yeah, even though when we were fighting with no gloves and stuff, I mean, you're talking about children. Back in that time, when I was a youth, when I was fighting, it was like, first of all, the chief Simbon, the center referee, if you got hit and you didn't move, it was no point. You had to have some kind of a movement that made them understand that you were touched. Then they would, call it, because they could anytime. Today's tap was never could never and would never be accepted back in those days.
Blood wasn't a good reason to stop a fight unless you couldn't see or breathe. That wasn't even a good reason to stop a fight. Unless it was malicious. It took a little bit to get disqualified. And Soki got disqualified a whole lot in tournaments. I think that discouraged him, so he slowed up a little bit. Yes. Those were the days. And like you said, it changed the whole game when the gear came on, that safety equipment came on. We were used to getting, after class, if you wasn't bruised somewhere or bloodied somewhere, you must have been the water boy. Because we were the rib cage. I remember it now. The rib cages would be all messed up and bruised, and oh man, the knuckles.
That's right. Toes.
The impies, and this is the type of sparring we did.
Yes.
And so it was people don't know. It was a real fight sparring, actually. You were in there.
That's right.
It was a real fight. It was no points in our system. It was no, okay, stop, good point. It was none of that. It was continuous.
Yes.
Fall, get back up, keep going.
That's it.
And there was no time clock. There was no clock. It was whenever Soki said stop. And then the match would be over. See, I never got this part. The match would be over, and Soki said, no, you stay. But I'm tired. Oh man, we would go through 4, 5, 6 guys back to back.
Yes.
So that's what built the endurance, which would translate into a good fighter.
Well, don't you remember, like back in those days too, so many people were fighting. You could have a division with 75 people.
Yeah. So
you may fight 8, 9 times.
Exactly. That's not exaggerating.
No, absolutely not. You could fight that many times and you'd be there all day. Remember the tournaments? We would get there early in the morning, 8 in the morning, 9 in the morning, and we wouldn't leave until after midnight, 11 o'clock, midnight. Crazy. I mean, of course, if you didn't get not disqualified, but if you didn't lose early.
So many times, yeah.
Yeah.
You would just stay in the game. So yeah, you would try to win as much as you can. Yeah.
Let's kind of move over to school, to teaching. You got something you want to say?
Yes. Come on. We can't not forget the times that and tournament they were not paying a whole lot for us, but there was hope that money would come one day. And that's what kept us driving. If it wasn't that I want to be in a movie one day, I want to get paid one day. for doing what I do, you know, going through all of this training. So we would chase the money. So Soke enrolled me to, or came into dojo and said, look, they got a tournament in Bermuda, only black belts coming. And it was $15,000 for grand champion or something like that. 10,000. I know you made it past the eliminations. I didn't. Soke didn't. But you know, you made it through. You beat who you needed to beat in your division to make it to the finals. And so we were wishing and we were cheering you on, you know, hoping we can get a little bit of that prize money. We knew you was going to make it. We knew you was going to make it, man. But they had their own agenda.
That's right.
The refs had their own agenda. The tournament promoters had their own agenda on who was going to win and who was not going to win. And that's a shame about the politics in that.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it was a shame. You had Budweiser and Paul Mitchell teams there also. And so they did not want them to lose. See, because I fought Mafia Holloway, sponsored by a Budweiser team. Mm-hmm. And I still have a blurry video of that. And you can't tell me just watching it that I didn't outpoint him. Or how many points had went by and not called. It's just right on tape. It's right there on video. So yeah, so I fought Mafia Holloway. I said, "Who? I gotta fight." I didn't think I would be in that league. I was going to run into him, but Mafia Holloway, New England champion, and then you had Tony Morrison. You know, you're friends with Tony. He was middleweight division in New York that time.
Yes, sir.
I'm in Bermuda, and yes. So like you said, I fought like 3-4 times that day in Bermuda, and we said if we find somebody's cheating, we're going to do what we normally do when they get caught cheating.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Leave our mark.
Yeah, and I have video of that particular fight as well, where the one who just before the money is where they got me just before, like my next fight in with the money, where you know, but the fella that I competed with, I mean, I'm tearing him up, you know. I mean, but anyway, what it is.
I remember that. You were in the finals, so we moved from the gym inside somewhere into a hotel, wherever it was.
It was inside the hotel area.
Yeah. We were going to get the money. We said that Soke was you were on the side too, and I don't know, Soke was just fed up. I don't know. That first guy, God bless him. I hope his nose is fixed and everything by now. He just happened to be the one who caught Little John, and Little John caught him right on the button. I see it coming.
Beautiful. It was I don't think he still knows what happened right now.
Yeah. All he know, he'd go like that, because you ran up to him and said, "Soke, are you okay?" And you'd always get this, like, so he would definitely, you heard people saying the zone. He would definitely be in a zone. Yeah. So you approach with caution.
Right.
When he's fighting.
Because when in that particular fight, like when he knocked the guy out, now when he knocked him out, he hit him with a spinning heel kick.
Yeah.
Him up, and he went up in the air. Now the guy was already taller than Soke.
Yeah.
But he hit the guy, and the guy went up in the air. He had on those Star Spangled Banner pants and whatnot.
He had the red, white, and blue on.
Yeah, that's right. And when he hit the floor, I was like, "Oh man!" I went over to Soke. Man, Soke almost knocked. He almost turned around and got me. And you know, when I see it on the video, I was like, "Oh man, I could have got really jacked up on that." But that was a beautiful, beautiful fight. Of course, he was disqualified, but it was they really didn't want to disqualify him, but they did.
Yeah, I mean, with the ambulance coming, I believe they took him off on a stretcher. They made it all dramatic. They held the tournament up. You know, they gave him smelling salts and all this stuff to wake him up. You know, we tried. I tried. I really didn't want to hurt anyone. I wanted to get the money. I really wanted to get the money, you know? And when Mafia hit the floor, that was sort of intentional because he had hit the stomach with a good clear point. I said, okay, good. But when he backed up to throw the spinning wheel kick, that was taking it a little bit too far. So I blocked it out, swept, and I let him hit the floor. And you could hear that throughout the gym. Boom.
Yes, sir.
You know, so my chances were over for getting any money after that.
Right. Yes, sir. Yeah. I want to segue, you know, before we get to the end. I really want to give a little of what you're doing right now, like the kind of school classes you've been having. You've been working with children for a number of years, and I want you to highlight some of that.
Okay. Yeah. So Soki and I, Soki, I was coming to Florida. I had family here, this particular area in Florida. And Soki said he was moving, told me he was coming to this area, Sarasota. So I was like, really? Okay. So I was living in Atlantic City, but teaching, like you said, youth program. But I was also ready to move back to Florida or move to Florida. So I came down a year after Soki did and, you know, taught for him a little bit in that town he was before I moved further north. But before I did, Jonas Nunez came down with a group of his fighters. Yeah, so Jonas Nunez, he came down with his fighters. It was an awesome event. His fighters won. And so I was very interested in how he was maneuvering and we would hear a lot about his work up in New York. And so I asked him, how do you maintain these schools? And he said the 501c3 tax exempt and this type of thing. So I went to City Hall and I applied for a business license first. After the business license, then I started working my way up, saving money to get the application for the 501c3, which was badly needed. So once I gotten that, I was able to move a little better going into these after school programs. Just anybody can't just walk in there. You need to have some certification. And in order for them to pay you, they're paying nonprofits is what they want to do. They don't want to pay cash and it's going nowhere. So they want to invest in a tax exempt organization. And so I became one. So that opened a lot of doors for me and different places to teach. And before you know it, I was teaching for the public library system, doing self-defense workshops. So, and in the Pinellas County, Florida. So I would work my way from North County to South County, doing these self-defense workshops for either family, adults, or both, or families, youth, or the both of them. So that was a lot of exposure, as well as the after-school programs. And I was at one after-school program, and when this lady came in, staff came and said, there's someone to see you. I went outside and it was Dr. Valerie, and she wanted me to teach her STEM program at Fairmount Park Elementary School now. Okay. So that introduced me to the public school system. So I taught for her for about 3 years. And I went on to another school, academy preparatory school, for 10 years. And I still stayed at the after school program where she came and got me. So that was 12 years there, 10 years at. So that being said, a lot of youth had came through my program. And I became well known in this area because there's just no, I won't say culture, but there's no culture in that way. The martial arts a black martial arts instructor. Plenty of the other, schools on the north side. And so I was basically predominantly the only black martial arts instructor. So that made me more, more available, I guess.
Nice. Well, man, you're full of a lot of information, a lot of history, and it's a pleasure for me to walk with you. You like I said.
To be here, man.
Man, like I said, you get a chance to learn more, about people, and I'm just grateful to Almighty God, Allah, for blessing me with. And it was kind of forced on me. I got to tell you the truth. It was like, you need to do something. You need, and I said, okay, let me just do this. And I wasn't planning on even doing it for long, but the more I do it, the more I get a chance to know my family better.
And documenting their history, right?
Yeah, it's so awesome. So I want to thank you for opening up yourself and giving everyone an opportunity to see who Professor Walter Evans is. You know what I'm saying?
And I had the opportunity, Father's Day, there's a guy who works for the Tampa Bay Times newspaper. And he says, I'd like to do an article on you for Father's Day, because of the things you're doing in the neighborhood here for years.
Yes.
And so there's a section in there, he gave me the whole cover, outside the front page, and the inside full page.
Nice.
I was really just, so blessed to have that happen. And he asked me, the editors, to open up on my childhood coming up, and what brought me, to the position and what I'm doing now, teaching the youth. So I did that. And that was a Wednesday. Thursday morning, I had that newspaper's online. So Thursday morning, I had got an email from News Nation, the morning show, and asking me, will I be available or would I like to be on this show in the morning? So I said, heck yeah, what I got to do? It says, we're sending you some documents and you sign and we'll discuss some things and, just be prepared to go on the show. I was like, wow, just from that interview. Now I got a TV show and it's all geared around what I do. So it was a blessing, a true blessing, from Allah to have me recognized nationally, not just the local TV station.
That's right. That's awesome, man. Congratulations on all of your victories and all that you do. Continue to work with the youth and with the children, because that's our future. And if our future do not get an opportunity to feel and understand what we give them or what we have for them, they're going to be lost. So I appreciate and thank you for what you do. And I want to thank you again, man, for...
I want to thank you as well for the things that you do.
A good show, a great show for us in this podcast.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, my brother, thank you very much. Us. All right, everybody, listen, all of you out there, you got another opportunity to walk with a master who have walked with the master and masters. So thank you very much. Again, here with Professor Walter Evans. Take care, everybody. Us.
Every student of a master here today, you reflect your master teacher. You want to walk like him. You want to talk like her. But you start by having an object in front of you that you admire.